All right, ready to dive into some Osho. We've got chapters 10 and 11 from the Book of Wisdom lined up. And, well, who doesn't want a happier frame of mind, right?
It's like a universal need, isn't it? And Osho, he gets right to the heart of it. He talks about millions walking around carrying these imaginary crosses, suffering. But then there's Buddha, living on the same planet, experiencing pure paradise. It makes you wonder, what was Buddha doing so differently?
Yeah, it's like they were given the same ingredients,
Yeah.
joy, pain, challenges, but they each chose a totally different recipe. And that's what I love about Osho, how he emphasizes that it's not the world that's good or bad, it's how we choose to see it.
Exactly. It's empowering when you think about it. He's not saying it's easy, but that we have more control than we realize. It reminds me of how differently, say, politics and religion approach this whole human struggle thing.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because politics is all about changing the outside world, fixing systems.
But religion, the way Osho sees it at least, is about going inward. Not about changing the world out there, but changing the way your mind experiences it.
So it's like science and religion, both searching for truth, but with totally different tools.
Exactly. And both are valuable in their own right. But today, what we're really diving into is that inner alchemy Osho talks about, cultivating a happy frame of mind. It's almost a radical idea, choosing to be happy as a starting point, even when things are tough.
Right. And that takes daily effort. Can we really find something positive in every negative situation?
That's the challenge and the potential reward. Osho tells this amazing story about Buddha. He's in this village and people are just laying into him, insults flying left and right.
Oh, yeah. They were brutal. But Buddha, in his ultimate wisdom, just smiles and says, "You're 10 years too late. If you wanted to see me angry, you should have come before I learned to let go."
Such a powerful response, right? It shows how when you're committed to inner growth, even tough situations can become fuel. It's about recognizing we always have a choice in how we react.
Which brings us to that idea Osho talks about, existence becoming supportive. The more we embody a positive perspective, the more life seems to reflect it back to us.
Absolutely. It's not about denying the negative, but choosing where we focus our attention. Osho is real about this too. We get distracted, we fall back into old habits. There's even a whole sutra on how distraction is still mind training in a way.
It's true. We're human, we're going to mess up, we're going to lose focus.
Yeah.
But it's about catching ourselves, right?
Yep. Yes. Being aware of our inattention. He uses this great analogy. It's like having a wound. You don't want to keep picking at it, you just observe it, let it heal, no judgment. It's the same with our minds.
Awareness over self-punishment. And Osho, he doesn't just leave us hanging with these big ideas. He actually gives us 3 specific things to help cultivate that awareness.
And those are key because it's easy to get swept up in life and forget all about our inner world.
Right, so point 1 is making meditation a regular thing. I love how he compares it to taking care of a delicate rose.
Beautiful image. Just like a rose needs constant care to thrive, so does our inner peace. Regularity is so important.
And point 2, don't get lost in the non-essential. Osho uses this example of people playing cards saying they're killing time.
Powerful image. How often do we waste precious energy on things that don't really matter? As seekers, we have to be mindful of where our energy is going.
Which brings us to point 3. Don't rationalize your errors.
Oh, that's the ego's favorite game, isn't it? We mess up, and instead of owning it, our minds come up with all these justifications to avoid discomfort.
But ultimately, that prevents us from growing and learning from those mistakes. It's about finding the courage to be honest with ourselves, Admit when we mess up so we can make a different choice next time. So we've got this foundation of awareness, this happy frame of mind. But Osho doesn't stop there. He talks about shifting our inclination from mind to heart, from thinking to feeling.
And he's not talking about some fluffy self-help stuff here. He's talking about a fundamental shift in our being. He warns us that our minds can trick us into thinking we're progressing when really we're just, spinning our wheels.
It's so true. He even says, thinking about love isn't going to help, but feeling love, that'll change you.
Isn't that great? It's like you can read a cookbook 1,000 times, but until you taste that meal, feeling is what connects us to truth. Thinking can keep us stuck up here.
It's funny how thinking seems to be the ego's domain and feeling is more about tapping into, our essence. Our being.
Exactly. And that's where Osho's progression from mind to heart to being becomes really powerful.
Okay, so break down that journey for me. We go from thinking to feeling, and then feeling leads us to this deeper understanding of being.
Yes. Osho describes being as pure amness, just existing, free from all the filters of thought and emotion. He uses this beautiful analogy. Think of a sunset. The sun's light, it reflects on the clouds, gives them their color. The clouds themselves aren't the sun, but they reflect its brilliance.
I love that. So then our feelings are like those clouds, reflections of our true nature, our being.
Exactly. And as we cultivate that connection to our being, Osho says there's an even deeper state, non-being. This, he says, is the doorway to enlightenment.
Non-be, it's almost impossible to grasp,
Yeah.
But it sounds like ultimate surrender. Like the ego completely dissolves and merges with like the vastness of everything.
You got it. It's not a concept to think about, but an experience to be lived. And it comes through surrender, letting go of everything we think we know. But even before we get to those mind-blowing levels of non-being, Osho offers some really practical advice. He says, do not discuss defects.
Ooh, that one's tough. It's like our default is gossip in comparison, isn't it?
Totally. But it highlights how we use other people's flaws to boost our own egos. Seeing someone else mess up can make us feel superior, even if we don't admit it.
Oh, absolutely. It's like fuel for negativity.
Mm,
But Osho wants us to break free from that trap,
yeah.
to focus on awareness instead.
And it's not just about avoiding negative talk, but also bragging about our own shortcomings.
Yeah. He brings up St. Augustine and Mahatma Gandhi as examples.
Right. And while they may have used it to help others relate to their journeys, it still involves a degree of self-focus. What Osho's getting at is pure awareness. When we're truly present, those flaws, they just lose their grip on us.
It's like shining a light in a dark room. More awareness, less power to the shadows.
Exactly. And this leads perfectly into Osho's next sutra. Don't think about anything that concerns others.
Okay, that is a tall order. Our brains are practically wired to get caught up in everyone else's business.
True. But Osho reminds us how precious this life is, how important it is to focus on what truly matters, our own inner evolution.
Which is where the idea of identifying our greatest defilement comes in. This connects back to Gurdjieff, right?
Yes. Gurdjieff was all about self-honesty. He believed real transformation starts with confronting our deepest, most unconscious tendencies. Like he'd tell his students, what's your biggest weakness? What trips you up over and over?
It's about getting real with those patterns, those obsessions, anger, greed, jealousy, whatever it is for each of us.
Exactly. They're the foundation of the ego. Osho even uses India's attitude towards sex as an example. Centuries of repression created a society fixated on it.
It's like the more we resist something, the stronger it becomes. So how do we break free?
That's where Osho gets radical. He says, don't try to cultivate the opposite of your defilement.
So if you struggle with anger, don't force yourself to be overly compassionate.
Right, because that just keeps the pendulum swinging. Instead, Osho says, pour awareness directly into the defilement.
Don't fight it, don't replace it, just observe it with awareness.
Precisely. By shining the light of awareness onto our shadows, we stop the pendulum and experience a different kind of freedom. It's about stepping off the hamster wheel of reactivity and finding that stillness within.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've explored going from thinking to feeling to being, and the importance of awareness, not getting caught up in distractions or other people's stuff.
And all of this leads to what might be Osho's most challenging sutra: abandon all hopes of results.
Wow, abandon all hope for results.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. Seems like our egos are hardwired to look for those shortcuts, want the gain without the work.
It's ingrained, for sure. We want the reward without the journey, right?
Right.
Like the destination without needing the map. Osho uses this great example. He compares earning money, honestly, versus, those shortcuts like smuggling or shady business deals.
Right, like that saying, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Deep down, we know it, but our minds still want to find that loophole.
Especially when it comes to inner growth. We crave that instant gratification, that magic formula for enlightenment. But Osho's saying, true growth, that takes surrender. It's about being present for the process, letting go of the how and when.
And he tells that story about the guy searching for the meditation master to illustrate this. Right?
Oh, yeah. The one where the guy spends years in the Himalayas going through all these crazy hardships just to find this legendary teacher. He finally reaches this remote hut, but no master.
And in that moment of total defeat, he just gives up. He's like, that's it, I'm done.
And that's the turning point. The second he surrenders his attachment to the outcome, to his idea of how it should be, bliss hits him.
And then, of course, the master appears.
Exactly. It perfectly shows how our striving, our clinging to results, actually blocks what we want.
So it's less about forcing ourselves to be blissful and more about creating the right conditions for bliss to just show up.
Exactly. Osho says meditation is a non-goal-oriented state of mind. When we let go of needing to control, to grasp for a certain result, that's when the magic happens. That's when, as he puts it, God will come to you.
So much of what we've been talking about comes down to letting go. Letting go of control, judgments of ourselves and others, even letting go of our expectations about enlightenment itself.
Exactly. It's a constant practice of surrender. But the thing is, Osho doesn't just leave us with these big abstract ideas. He gives us concrete practices to cultivate that surrender, to move through life with more grace and awareness.
And for anyone feeling a little overwhelmed, like, how am I supposed to abandon all hope of results? Remember, it's a journey, not a finish line. Be kind to yourself, take it one step at a time, and know that even our missteps can be opportunities for growth.
Beautifully said. It's about finding that balance. Aspiration and acceptance. We aspire to live by these truths, but accept that we're human, we'll mess up along the way.
It's like those moments when everything just clicks, when we feel that sense of flow, that effortless ease, even in the middle of challenges. It's like we get a glimpse of that non-doing Osho talks about, and the results, they just naturally follow from that alignment.
Exactly. And the more we cultivate those moments of presence, of non-striving, the more those out-of-season bloomings become the norm, not the exception. We experience peace, joy, fulfillment that goes beyond whatever's happening externally.
It's like we become walking examples of this, radiating love, compassion, wisdom, and it uplifts everyone around us. But it all starts with that inner shift, choosing to cultivate that happy frame of mind no matter what.
Exactly. It's realizing that true happiness isn't about what's going on in our lives, but how we choose to meet those moments.
Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights with us today. This deep dive into Osho's teachings has been truly enlightening, and I know we'll be thinking about these ideas for a long time.
It's been a pleasure. And for everyone listening, remember, the journey to happiness, to enlightenment, it's not a straight line. It's more like a spiral. We might revisit certain lessons, certain challenges, but each time we do, we have a chance to meet them with more awareness, more compassion, more love. So be gentle with yourselves. You're exactly where you need to be.
And as Osho reminds us, God will come to you when you least expect it, when you've let go of needing to control, to strive, to achieve. So let go. Trust the process. Embrace this messy, magnificent, miraculous journey of life. And until next time, may your lives be filled with unexpected blooms and the quiet joy of discovering your own inner paradise.